Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Welcome to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Hello. How's it going today? I hope you're having a wonderful day, or I hope you're starting off your day wonderfully. I'm super excited to be here and sharing all positive, feel-good stories with you like I always do. So let's just jump right into it. So Chef Andrea's charity is actually injecting $50 million into restaurants, and they're paying them to feed the hungry. So I know so many restaurants have been obviously closed down. Some have closed down permanently because of coronavirus. But now, there's lots of other communities and businesses, charities, nonprofit organizations that are finding ways to try to help the businesses in their communities right now. I know in California, the state is paying restaurants to deliver food to seniors in need. So now chefs all around the country are really trying to seize the moment and keep the restaurants open while actually delivering food to those who need it the most. So, a newly launched initiative called Restaurants for the People. It was launched by World Central Kitchen, WCK, and WCK is a Washington, D.C. based charity. They have a food first responders program that has actually already served millions of meals to people that are in dire circumstances around the world. So, the internationally recognized chef Jose Andres found this organization after visiting the post-earthquake Haiti in 2010. And over the course of the last WCK has made just headlines for, feeding different workers during the U.S. government shutdown, first responders fighting the California wildfires, hurricane-ravaged communities, and then most recently, of course, the people that are struggling amidst the COVID-19 crisis. So WCK is actually promising to cover the cost of 1 million meals prepared by more than 400 restaurants across the U.S. This nonprofit will reimburse restaurants at the rate of about $10 per meal, and the businesses will able to, rehire the staff that they had to let go, just in order to prepare these meals. So they're definitely, not only giving food to the people that are in need, but they're also helping hire people and get people's jobs back that they need. So one of the restaurants involved Rem's California, which is a famous Oakland-based Middle Eastern bakery owned by Rem Asil. Her kitchen is serving anywhere from 200 to 500 meals a day, and it continues to grow. And it's just for the vulnerable populations and the first responders. So that's pretty cool. So WCK's various different programs, it's called Chef for America that they like to use. They've worked with a total of 1,500 restaurants across the U.S., injected about $18 million into this industry. The charity has committed $50 million to its COVID relief programs, and it's hoping that these programs will serve as a model to the governments. So the WCK chief executive, Nate Mook, said, "Our hope is that we can show that this works and get the powers that be in our state governments and our federal governments to recognize that this is a solution. We have people we need to feed, we have restaurants that we need to put back to work, and we're showing that this is doable and that it's scalable." So in the meantime, their relief team has launched different operations on the Navajo Nation this week. The indigenous reservation has been hit particularly hard by the pandemic, and Jose Andres himself is on the ground. He's helping organizations get meals to people in hard-to-reach communities. So I thought that was pretty cool to share with you. Now I want to share that there are so many students, thousands of graduating students that have just graduated this year. They're actually donating their gowns to hospitals that are in need. So, pretty cool. Nathaniel Moore, he is a physician's assistant at the University of Vermont, Burlington. He was wondering why his graduation gown couldn't be repurposed as a piece of personal protective equipment for his colleagues at the hospital where he worked. So this was kind of his idea. So the image of my colleagues on the front line and at other medical facilities that lack the appropriate PPE and wearing trash bags with no sleeves and no protection under the waist, that just struck me. So they wanted to make a difference. So he decided to start Gowns for Good, which is a charity that basically donates gowns to hospital facilities that are lacking the necessary personal protective equipment to safely operate during the coronavirus outbreaks. So their slogan is "Wear the cap, donate the gown," and it's been, viral. It's gone huge. There's so many graduating students that are actually donating their gowns. Just across the country for awareness for Gowns for Good. So millions of young Americans are just, that are graduating from university every year. Their donation scheme could potentially end the personal protective equipment demand for gowns in just a few days. So it says graduation gowns are more effective than other personal protective equipment, given their length, sleeves, and easily zippered access. To carry out this mission of protecting healthcare workers by upcycling graduation gowns, the Gowns for Goods initiative was formed in April of 2020, and their medical facilities across the country have already submitted thousands of gown requests from this charity, and I guess they've managed to collect about 7,000 from private donors, and another 2,700 from corporate partners for graduation source and gowns. So there you have it. If you also want to be a part of this, you can definitely search this up, the Gowns for Good, and you can also donate and try to be a part of it if you would like to and you have the means for that. So I just thought that was a pretty cool. I never even thought graduation gowns. That does make sense for the perfect personal protective equipment. Now I thought I would share with you a pretty cool texting system that has come out now, and it is a compassionate texting system, and it allows you to send kind messages to frontline workers, and you can actually get them in return as well. Pretty cool. I love all these texting systems that come out to share feel-good stories. I think it's so cool because everyone is glued to their phones, and it's just the reality of our life right now. So having, that kindness, being able to spread kindness from your phone is just super exciting to me, I think, because it's what we're always on, right? And so why not make it right there for you? Can do it on your phone. It's just so easy. So the Text for Humanity switchboard was created by Cinch in partnership with Mental Health America, and they launched in January to try to combat online negativity and promote sharing of positive messages between people. And now they are, being able to send nice messages to frontline workers during this time. So to date, there's more than 83,000 messages of positivity have been exchanged across 85 different countries. The world, is moving into the next phase, and there's the hashtag Text for Humanity, and it enables people, choosing to participate to identify themselves as either a frontline worker or someone living in isolation, and then senders can choose the group that they would like to send a personalized message of thanks and support, and then the frontline workers include anyone from, nurses and doctors, delivery drivers, grocery store staffers, people performing just vital jobs that are keeping our society going right now. So there's no charge for the service. It's from Text from Humanity. You can search it up online and you'll see lots of information about it. But they are screening numbers. They've been growing since the start of the pandemic. So they say that there's a 70% increase in the number of people taking an anxiety screen and 64% increase in the number of people taking a depression screen between January and April. So they're saying that nearly half of adults are reporting high levels of anxiety through this period, and 51% saying that the crisis was affecting their well-being. So this is just another way that you can spread some positivity, because it's true. We're all feeling high anxiety and depression levels too right now. That it's just, it's inevitable with a time like this. It's going to happen. So this is just another way that you can try to spread kindness and cheer people's spirits up a little bit. So you can definitely go to the website Text for Humanity. You'll see a bunch of information, but it's also enabled on WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, regular text messaging as well. So it's really easy for anyone to join it. If they wanted to make it accessible for elderly and, those who likely to own a smartphone or don't own a smartphone, basically for anyone. So to join the service, all you have to do is text JOIN to 37352. That's the US. Or if you're an international somewhere else, you can text 1-833-421-4726. And you just text that number, join, and then this service is going to be available to you. But like I said, head over to the Text for Humanity website and you can find more information about being a part of it. But once you've sent a text message, Text for Humanity will share it with a fellow human somewhere in the world, and then you will receive a positive message from a stranger on your phone as well. So messages you receive can be transformed into different, personal artwork, and people are doing all sorts of things with the messages that they receive. There's a bunch of images online as well as again, and so it's just all about spreading that positivity to strangers in a time that we all need a little extra positivity, extra little push. So definitely, if you want to be a part of that, head over to Text for Humanity, or you can just send join to those numbers and be a part of it. All right, it is time for a little bit of a break, but don't go anywhere. When we get back, I have more feel-good stories to share with you, and I can't wait. So stay tuned.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I've got more feel-good stories to share with you, so let's just get started again. All right, so a 10-year-old girl, she has single-handedly managed to give the gift of art and joy to more than 1,500 kids that are in foster care and homeless shelters during the COVID-19 shutdowns. Her name is Chelsea Fair, and she's called it Chelsea's Charity. It's a nonprofit that she started with her parents back in August of 2019, and it's basically just donating art kits to at-risk children. Chelsea's mom says since she was 7, she was begging me and her dad to start a charity. She was so persistent. Every couple of months, she would ask, "Are we starting Chelsea's Charity yet?" When she was turning 10, she asked us again, and we decided it was time to go for it. So courageous at 10 years old. She wanted to start this charity, and she asked people to give her art supplies instead of birthday gifts. So that was kind of the initial batch of donations, and it helped to supply several dozen art kits for children in need. And then Chelsea just continued her efforts by collecting supplies for the kits through her charity's Amazon wish list. Pretty insane at 10 years old, so ambitious. So she's actually donated hundreds upon hundreds of art kits to homeless shelters, women's shelters, schools that were impacted by gun violence in 12 U.S. states. So each of these kits are filled with crayons, gel pens, coloring books, paper, colored pencils. And she says, although the COVID-19 shutdowns kind of prevented her from handing out the kits in person, she still managed to give out 1,500 art kits since the quarantine began. So she told that, her kits can help offer children some sense of therapy and some comfort that they brought her when she was grieving the death of a family member when she was only 8 years old. She just found the love of art and drawing and all this kind of thing. So she says, "I feel good inside knowing how happy they are when they get their art kits. I have definitely grown as a person because of this. Now my dream is to meet every kid in the entire world and give them art. Who knows, maybe if we do that, then our kids do that, we'll have world peace." Doesn't that just give you chills? A 10-year-old girl gave me chills. I think it's so sweet, so cute. Now I'm going to switch to some stories that definitely all you animal lovers out there will love. So let's start here. There has been some specially trained dogs, and they have saved a total of 45 rhinos so far from poachers in South Africa, and they are still counting. So yeah, these trusty canines have really helped to stop the poaching of rhinos in Asia. So these dogs saved the lives of 45 rhinos that were threatened by poachers since 2018, which is pretty cool. Now, amidst all of the coronavirus chaos, the Southern African Wildlife College continues to provide their essential services in the country's national parks. So they were trained to protect wildlife since birth, and these dogs began their important work at the age of 18 months. Pretty crazy. Their efforts have helped, law enforcement, of course, and just unprecedented 145 poachers and confiscate 53 guns. So South African national parks had previously employed anti-poaching teams using individual dogs, but their success was limited. So they say that Kruger was very keen to test free running dogs, and they were building basically a dog team. And it's a massive undertaking to try to do that because you need the right genetics, the right training, and you need the right mindset to bring it all together. So now, they're raising just these types of dogs. The groups are about 15 or so dogs, and they follow, different sets of animals, and they train these dogs to help all the poaching. Pretty cool. Dogs are amazing, it's not just for the law enforcement team and all of that. They do so many amazing things. So the work of the canine team continues during all of this coronavirus craziness. Just on May 7th, the Southern African Wildlife College celebrated the first birthday of the black and tan hound puppies that were born from the original dogs that came from Texas. And in 6 short months, they will be joining the veterans out in the field to continue protecting and serving endangered wildlife. Pretty cool. Now, as we know, not just restaurants and other businesses like that have fallen since the coronavirus. The collapse of tourism obviously has been a huge thing across the world, and the collapse of this tourist trade of elephants has been leaving, these elephants hungry, and there's no jobs for them right now, and so they're not able to do what they normally do. So a woman has kind of come up with a win-win solution with local farmers. So in Asia, elephants are, working in the tourist trade. They've been idled, of course, by COVID-19 because all the shutdowns. It's definitely not cheap to feed elephants and keep them in this tourism, especially when there's no income coming in. So Carol Buckley and her organization called Elephant Aid International, they created this kind of win-win solution for everybody. So basically, over the course of the last decade, the Elephant Aid International has been striving to improve the treatments of elephants in captivity, and they're working directly with elephant owners, government officials, charities, tourist facilities, elephant wearable groups, all those types of things. So they've been working closely with some tourist groups, and since, the tourism amidst all of the coronavirus has definitely taken a fall, they were saying that the elephant owners were quoted that they have been having, quite difficulty finding food for their elephants. So they came up with the solution that, since farmers, of course, are having quite a hard time with their harvesting and the produce in their fields, because since all the restaurants are shutting down or have been shut down, there's nowhere to give their food for. So rather than being forced to let all that food rot, they came up with a solution to find some farmers who are willing to sell their produce, arrange for workers to harvest the food, and then deliver it to elephants and their owners, which is pretty cool. It's kind of a hand-in-hand situation there. So the elephants are fed and the local farmers are generating income, and they're really planning to continue this initiative for as long as necessary, and just trying to, make sure that the elephants are fed during this time and that the local farmers are able to get some income as well. It's a win-win situation. Now, speaking of farmers, I have to share this story. More and more farmers are actually using garlicky supplements, because that is a way that they can help a very major environmental enemy, which personally, I didn't know this was an environmental enemy, but cow gas. Yes, cow gas is a huge environmental enemy. So farmers are using garlicky supplements to try to curb this environmental enemy. Pretty crazy. So I guess, it's like passing gas for humans. I guess cow burps are really notorious for producing more and more than just a smell. They produce a gas that is actually just terrible for the environment. I had no idea. So in this, they have a couple different studies that have come out, and this new garlic-based dietary supplement that they've been giving cows is shown to reduce the methane content in cows' burps by 30 to 38%, which means that they could help reduce the 2.6% of American greenhouse gas volume produced from cattle ranching. So methane is a potent greenhouse gas that basically traps heat in the atmosphere 25 times more effectively than CO2. So unlike CO2, represents more than 80% of America's greenhouse gas emissions, methane only stays in the atmosphere for about 12 years, which means that these supplements would only take a few years to begin having a very measurable effect. So that's what they're doing. They're giving their cows this garlicky supplement to help their burps and their farts to, in conclusion, help the environment. I had to share this story. I had no idea that was such an environmental impact that we had, an enemy that we had, but there you have it. There is something for everything. All right, it's time for another break, but don't go anywhere. When we get back, I have more feel-good, positive stories to share with you, so stay tuned.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Hello. We are back. Okay, so I thought I would share with you a recent study from Cornell University that says planning, it's basically the simple act of planning a trip can actually help boost your mental health by quite a bit. And they're saying to even do it during this time, during COVID-19. So I'll get into that. So basically, this study from Cornell University says that when you plan a trip in advance, you experience better feelings about your social situation, economic means, just like your state of health and your overall well-being. So, of course, we always get excited about planning a trip and making plans for that, whether you're a planner, an organizer, or not. You know, when you think about going on a trip, on a new adventure, it's exciting, it makes you happy. It's also something to look forward to, right? But of course, you know, you think of planning a trip right now, that sounds quite difficult because we don't know what's going to happen. But they are saying that there's a strong chance no one but Italians will be under the Tuscan sun this spring or summer. That's according to the Italian Minister for Culture and Tourism. But that doesn't mean that you should be putting off your planning, they say. It can actually give you a significant mental boost during these times. So planning a trip or starting to think about it can really help your mental health. So I guess back in 2014, the University of Cornwall researchers, they published a paper on how experiences provide more satisfaction and happiness, joy, than actually going and buying something materialistic, right? Materials. So basically, experience is more beneficial for our mental health than going and buying material goods. So this paper in 2014 kind of just focused on the aspect of basically just making sure you're experiencing things and the experiencing consumption and the psychological effects of like before and after you consume an experience compared to the before and after effects of when you go buy a materialistic thing. So the study found that delayed gratitude, especially if it relates to travel, was more pleasurable than both immediate consumption and delayed consumption of material goods and services. So that's pretty cool. So it does say that if you just go out and experience things, you're going to have an overall healthier well-being. So it says it appears that those who are waiting to go on a holiday are much happier with their life as a whole, experience less negative or unpleasant feelings, and thus enjoy an overall net positive effect from pleasant feelings. The holiday taking group is also happier with their family, economic situation, and health domains compared to the non-holiday taking group. So I guess it makes sense, right? Because you get excited to look forward to something. It's a new adventure. You get to learn new things. Of course, that's exciting. But it's actually, it kind of all starts with you and wanting to plan it. Like I said, planning something during COVID-19 sounds kind of silly, I guess. You can, like, how are we supposed to know when we're going to do that? But it doesn't mean that you can't start planning ideas and things that you're going to want to do. This can have an instant mental health positive effect. So planning a trip that, is especially exciting, it's not a work trip, it's an actual vacation. You kind of get this idea. It's just planning those pleasurable details of the places. So like the sensation of, swimming in the ocean or just hanging out on the beach in the sun, or maybe you want to go somewhere cold. You want to go snowboarding on the Swiss Alps or something like that. That can actually just, the thought of that and planning those like little activities and things that are going to bring you pleasure on your trip is said to bring you pretty much instant happiness. You feel just excited and an overall kind of joy, right? So it says, in a sense, that we start to consume a trip as soon as we start thinking about it. So when we imagine eating gelato in a pizza place in Rome, or going, water skiing, or going on the Swiss Alps, and we get to experience a version of those events in our mind, right? So we're already thinking of those things. So they gave you some tips for kind of travel planning therapy, they say. So if you're like the person who likes to plan a trip, there's lots of reasons why you actually should be doing it right now, because it can be very rewarding beyond, the obvious of just, it's going to bring you joy and excitement and something to look forward to. But they say COVID-19 presents a challenge both in terms of the danger it poses to health and the restrictions to travelers in popular tourist countries. So, for those who are looking to spend their holiday in some nature, there's added incentive as one will be away from COVID-19 danger and able to enjoy the outdoors, but which many citizens in places like the UK, Italy, and the US have been unable to do that because of lockdowns. So being stuck in our houses and neighborhoods for weeks without end, planning a trip can simply just give us something else to talk about, which is so true. We're always talking about the news right now. It's a lot of negativity. There's always, what happened, and, what are the numbers today, what's happening in different countries today, all related to COVID-19. So it's actually just going to give you something new to talk about, something new to focus on too. It's a good distraction compared to just always talking about the pandemic. So many countries that are, in more exotic and unstable regions of the world rely heavily on the money from tourism, and tourism right now has just gone down so much, obviously, because no one can do anything. So traveling just after this pandemic and spending money will actually help all those local markets recover from this economic downfall, right? So if you are able to start planning your trip now, just start thinking of ideas, start researching things, maybe do an inspiration board or something like that. They are saying that can do wonders to your mental health, especially during this time. So don't think it's a silly thing to start planning a trip during a pandemic, because it will come to an end and you will be able to go on it. You might not be able to get, exact prices or anything like that right now, but you can definitely plan certain activities in the area that you want to go. So I just thought I would throw that in there, because it is definitely something we can all be doing right now and thinking about that can help our mental health. So now my last story for you, I thought I would share something also about the environment. There has been now some new plant-based bottles and cups, and they've been backed by Coca-Cola and Danone, and these bottles and cups can degrade in a year. So they, if you've ever been at like a public event and you've seen, the trash cans and things like that, they just pile up with water bottles and different kind of cans, pop cans, beer cans, all those types of things. So now major food and beverage companies are getting kind of behind on the plant plastics to try to help curb the environmental impact that all these bottles and cans have on our environment. So there has been a new innovation out of the Netherlands as possibly marking the end of plastic. So it's the biochemical startup Avintium, and they've weathered through COVID-19 slowdowns as well, partially because the potential of its plant-based plastic to solve ocean and landfill pollution is so promising. So this company is partnering with the big companies like Coca-Cola and food company Danone. They sell $24.6 billion in food products every year. So they've had these companies to come aboard, and these two giant companies have invested in the construction of a world-leading bioplastic plant in the Netherlands. So pretty cool. The trials have shown that this design is durable enough to contain carbonated drinks, and when it's placed in a composter, they will biodegrade over the course of 1 year and over 3 when left in a natural environment. So they say that this plastic has very attractive sustainability credentials because it uses no fossil fuels and can be recycled, but would also degrade in nature. So it's the biorefinery that will break down waste from corn, wheat, and beets, and it creates 5,000 metric tons of plant plastic in the first year. So products that are packaged in the Avintium's plant plastic could be on the shelves by 2023, with high expectations of increased market demand to come quite soon afterwards. So keep an eye for those on the shelf, especially with these big companies backing them up. We will probably be seeing those sooner rather than later. So I thought I would share that with you because it's always good to look on the positive environmental aspect of our world right now. But that is all the feel-good, positive stories I have to share with you today. Thank you so much for listening to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. I appreciate you being here. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, like and follow us on social media, and leave a 5-star review. I appreciate it so much. It helps a lot. So please remember to stay positive, stay healthy, and I will be back with more feel-good stories for you next time. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news and even weird news. The GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast.